Okay, hello and welcome once again to another episode of Kitabi Baatein. I'm Abhishek, also known as Books Wale Bhaiya, and my guest today is noted novelist Anurag Tripathi, with whom I'll be discussing his latest book, The Goa Gambit. Anurag, it's absolutely a pleasure to have you here.
Same here. I'm very happy to be on this show.
Great. So, Anurag Tripathi is an alumnus of the prestigious Indian School of Business. He's also a course in advanced creative writing from the University of Oxford. His debut novel on the art market in India was nominated for the Raymond Costed Book Award in 2017. His second, The Lal Street, was a fictionalized, no holds barred account of what goes on behind the scenes in the financial advisory business in India. This novel, his third, takes the reader into the seedy underbelly of Goa's gambling scene. So, Niraj, your previous novel, The Lal Street, and now this one, The Goa Gambit, it deals with issues such as, very importantly, about financial industry, which has often been accused of, adopting illegal, unethical practices. It deals with greed, money, crime. So, is your career in investment banking which motivated you to write and bring these topics to the fore, or just out of interest you thought about writing such a novel?
So I have dealt very closely with money in my life. My entire career, I started as a tax consultant and then went and did my business school. And post business school was in banking, then portfolio management, equity broking, and finally investment banking. So I've seen the entire gamut of financial services. And as a result, I have dealt with money and I have seen people up close dealing with money. uh, while I was doing deals for my clients or whether I was dealing with retail investors in the equity broking arm. So greed is something that I've seen very closely, and hence it comes naturally to me. I have a lot of stories in the reservoir because I have dealt with so many people, both retail and institutional, with respect to money. And these are the stories which are now being told in these novels, fictionalized and then being told in these novels. As for the casino industry per se, so I am a social gambler like everyone else, like in the sense that I go there for entertainment, and I have visited a few casinos in my life. And the reason for writing this novel is actually somebody that I met on a flight to Goa, who was a compulsive gambler, who was sitting with me, and I had an opportunity to chat with him for 2 hours during the flight. And I found out that a large number of people from the villages surrounding Delhi NCR were visiting the Goa casinos. That's what I was told. And they were all compulsive gamblers. It was an intriguing story. These people were basically farmers from the villages who had sold their land to real estate developers, and they had come in the money. And then probably the casino agents at some point in time had arrived to the villages, and they had enticed these people to come and see the gambling scene in Goa. So villagers who had little entertainment, access to entertainment, the access to entertainment was probably a cinema hall in the village or somewhere
Yes.
close to the village, was suddenly thrown in these casinos with belly dancers and alcohol flowing and gambling and prostitution as well. And I mean, they had little defense. I call these three things the three vices which have corrupted God and men alike for time immemorial. So
Yes.
what defense did men stand in front of them? And what happened was that over a period of time, the entire villages were corrupted one by one, and they started going to these casinos and gambling. So the agents were quite successful. So when I heard this story, I found it very intriguing. And then I actually went and visited some of the casinos in Goa when I was there. And I found that the story was true. You will actually find 30 to 40% people on the casino floor who look like farmers and villagers. So it was a true story. And then I started researching into the casinos, and that's how this story came about. The different characters came about. Yeah.
Right. So this is actually an interesting point, because when I read your novel, I was actually quite eager to know if the farmer thing is true. Because being in Delhi, I was aware that many farmers become rich just because in the regions such as Gurgaon, Noida, and other suburbs, they become rich by the virtue of their lands, which the developers realize the potential and they got a lot of money. And unfortunately, it's not put to good use. That's what I got to know by many farmers, they did lack, that vision to, use, put that money to good use. But this was actually a revelation to me as well. So I think when it comes to greed, whether it's financial services sector or it's casinos, I think it knows no boundaries and it touches upon every segment of the society, something which is, talked about in your book as well. What's your take on that? Greed spreading to every nook and corner of the society.
Yes, greed cuts through. It doesn't matter what kind of background you come from. I think it's an inherent, a very strong motivation for us to do something.
Absolutely.
Yes, and whether you are, from a village, you are poor, or whether you're rich, it has no bounds. I agree with you completely. So it's a very strong internal motivation, and that's why it comes so naturally to all of us. And that's why it is difficult to control yourself when an opportunity comes, because there's
Right.
always greed for money, greed in any format, and that's the reason it's one of the
True.
biggest vices, if you see. Yes, this is the reason it's such a central subject in all my novels, because I
Yes.
like to look at human behavior in the light of greed, and
Right.
depending upon the question of morality. I think there is no right and wrong. There are shades of right and wrong,
Right.
and that's how my characters in all my novels are.
Yes.
They are layered characters. It's like an onion. You
Yes.
keep peeling them, and depending on the stimulus, the character behaves differently.
Right.
So you will find this in my novels. I keep telling people that I don't write fairy tales because there are no clear rights and wrongs.
Right.
I mean, we were discussing this, and this came as a discussion. The difference between Ramayana and Mahabharata as an epic. Ramayana is more clear cut, what was right and what was wrong. But if
Yes.
you see
Yes.
Mahabharata, all the characters are gray. We can have
Yes.
discussion for many hours which side was right and which side was wrong and who wasn't.
Absolutely.
So it's like
Absolutely.
that. It's in the current context. So greed is something that I have very closely seen up close in my life, and that is why it gets projected in all my novels. And I see
Right.
people how they react to the stimulus.
Right. Absolutely. I think when you quoted Mahabharata, it reminded me of a quote from ex-diplomat and author Pawan Verma ji, who mentioned very beautifully in his book that Mahabharata is actually a book about ethical choices. What
Yes,
exactly are ethics? How do you make the choices? And in one instance, when Duryodhan says to Krishna that you are a god and you talk about morality and ethics, but yet you have killed me in an unethical way, to which Lord Krishna
right,
replies that this is Kali Yuga, I am in a human form, and even I
right.
am not free from all vices or what you call unethical. So this has to be the way to kill a person like you. So yes, I think that's the important question which you definitely mention in your book. So coming to the book again, the characters, I can see there are many small stories intertwined in one novel story, not just greed, but stories of individuals like Jack and Nisha who want to make their mark, who want to live, you can say, a kind of clean life, free from all these vices, and the star who was once a star and unfortunately is not a big star these days. So lot many stories intertwined. So how did you manage to weave all these different stories into one book?
So as far as the stories in the casino world are concerned, they are predominantly based on the people that I met at the casino. So I met a lot of high rollers when I was researching this book personally, and some of them have found a role in the novel. Casinos in Goa are regularly visited by Bollywood, both current and erstwhile, and it was based on one of these characters that the film star, the erstwhile
Yes.
big movie star, was taken. But the rest of the story is fictionalized. What I was trying to bring out is that it is, in society today, we worship success. Success
Yes.
worship is the norm of our society, and
Yes.
success is unfortunately seen by virtue of assets that one owns
Right.
or one showcases, right? So, in order to showcase yourself as being successful, somewhere it's important that you show assets or live beyond your means if required. What has happened is that a lot of people, in order to uh, showcase around them that they are successful, they are living beyond their means, and that's the reason when the downfall actually happens, they crash immediately, because till the time
Yes.
they are able to borrow the last penny, they survive. And they give up
Absolutely.
basically when nobody, everybody refuses to give them further. So
Yes.
this is very true in Bollywood. It's true actually in even in normal industries. Your creditors will give you money only so far as there's confidence, and confidence, unfortunately, is again a function of success and what you showcase. So an
True.
easy way to take people for a ride is to showcase that you are successful, even if the business is not doing very well. And otherwise, all the creditors will line up at your house. Forget giving you more money, they will want their money back. So, this is the reason we see both companies and individual characters, falling from grace to
Right.
disgrace very fast, because most of them have been living a double life. The reality might be very different from what they are showcasing. So,
No, that's true.
yeah, and so all these characters were bought in. Most of these characters were people that I actually met. Some have been fictionalized completely to create a rounded, and I wanted to have multi plots running simultaneously in the novel, people interacting, and then bringing all of them together on one night, which was the inauguration of the new casino, when these characters and their arcs basically complete, or so that was the case. Initially when I started writing, uh, I don't think we had envisaged that we will have so many characters. The characters are based on real people whom I met when I was researching on the casinos, from high rollers to ex movie stars to to people who used to work in the casino basically as waiters or on the security side. Some people who exhibited superior skills, who were people winning more often than losing in the casino.
Right.
And this mix match allowed me to explore these characters in greater detail and then come up with a story. The story was predominantly character led. It was not something that
Yes.
I had in my mind. So
Right.
it was the characters driving the story. I knew the main character, what he wanted, which was Jay Shah. And then the
Yes.
other characters basically came around him.
Right.
And then there were intertwined stories which basically came in and out of Jayesh Shah's character arc, basically. And that's how I pursued it. So I'm a person who doesn't really control the characters when they're taking you in a particular direction. I allow it to be. Sometimes characters um, evolve in a very different manner than you had envisaged initially when
Yes.
you start writing.
Of
So I'm one of
course.
those people who give them that liberty. So what the characters you are seeing is the way they have evolved naturally, so to speak of. And yeah, I mean, when I set out, I did not think I will have 10, 11 concurrent characters, with arcs. But it set out to give a complete sense of the casino industry and the story that we are, talking about here
Right.
in the Goa Gambit. So that was the process.
No, of course, because I think if you someone reads the novel, they will sense it that not only it is the plot wonderful, but all the characters are very well fitted into it. So many times it happens that either you say the plot was better or the characters, or it was a character driven novel or a plot driven. But I think what I could sense was that both things matched really well. So as if the plots were made for the story, or you can say the story was as per the character. So I think that's definitely a very good point of your book. So as you talked about the characters, and many of them are based on real life characters, and as your portrayal is something very open, I'm sure no one is coming to you and laying a claim that you have given a wrong representation of my character. So because your characters are very realistic, so I hope nothing of that sort is happening. No movie star or politician coming after you now to
No,
see
no,
that why have you portrayed me in
no,
this
no.
manner.
Abhishek, it's totally fictionalized. At the draft stage, the politician's name was something different. It was changed because it so happened that there was a politician with a name very close to the name I had used in the book,
Right.
without any background on him. So we changed that, but no, it's completely fictionalized. There is no such person who will lay claim that he has not been portrayed properly in the novel. Uh,
Right.
what I have done is I've been inspired by people, and in case here there are multiple people. It's not only a single character. So there are
Yes.
multiple
Yes.
characters who you pick and choose and then create one character. So
That's true.
that's how it has been done. Yeah.
Right. And as Goa Gambit, as well as the last sheet talked about, greed and manipulation. And in the first book, you took up the equity broking and investment banking industry. And in this
Correct.
casino in the some sense are, sort of an industry, you can say definitely. Uh,
Correct.
but do you think that greed, which the way we saw it in movies in such as, 70s, 80s, or even up to 90s, wherein we had this underworld guy who is doing this smuggling and everything, and the law is machinery is after him. Do you think that greed over these decades, since say 80s 90s, has only become more you can say sophisticated and more acceptable into the society? Because if 20 years ago you would have said someone is going to a casino, I'm sure people would raise their eyebrows, but it's a cool thing. And you discuss it among friends, अरे तू casino नहीं गया क्या? So, do you think that greed and all these vices, whether it's lust, it's prostitution, everything, it has just changed the format and has become more acceptable into the society?
I think it's become more mainstream today. Casinos
Yes.
are not seen as gambling dens now. They are seen as entertainment destinations. And
Yes.
they are entertainment destinations, frankly.
Right.
Gone are the days when you had big bosses running casinos and basically
Yes.
the mafia funding them. Now casinos are
Yes.
listed on the stock exchanges. You can buy a share of
Absolutely.
a casino, right?
Yes.
And they are like any other legal business which is running. It's an entertainment business. I mean, today also, I think the casinos are competing with every form of entertainment. So
True.
I am in Goa. If suppose I am in Goa, I have the day to me, and I can, for entertainment purposes, I can either watch a Netflix, which is a form of entertainment. I can, read a fiction novel, which is entertainment, or I can, yeah, or I can, go to a casino, which is a form of
Right.
entertainment. So basically, you have to see casinos today in a wider sense. They are an
Yes.
entertainment destination. They are no longer the gambling dens that they used to be. They have, funding coming from proper channels, uh, as compared to in the past when it was mafia money which was driving these casinos. And they compete with any or every other format of entertainment. So they have to be seen in a wider context now. They are no longer gambling dens as they used to be earlier. There's
Right.
proper channel of funding that now chases casinos. Some of them are
Right.
even listed in the US. The largest ones are listed, so you can
Yes.
buy a share of a casino. And I think that's the reason why they have become mainstream.
Right.
Today, it's not a taboo to go and play at a casino. Even the
Right.
word, it's called playing at a casino. It's no longer called gambling at a casino.
Gambling at a casino. True. Very
Yes,
true.
and yes, and I think they are seen in the same light as probably trading in the stock markets. Why is it any different?
Right.
Uh, so I think the taboo is gone. Live gaming as it used to be earlier. I think there was a time when people, if they went to play the casino, they won't have discussed it with their friends. Definitely not their family. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
but now it's very different. I see couples going to the casino together. It's
Together.
not
Yes.
any longer a male bastion where you don't see women. So it's very different. I think we've come about, and these things have become much more acceptable in our society today.
No,
Um,
that's very true. I remember reading a few Hindi novels of the 70s and 80s era, and as you rightly mentioned, they were a male bastion and they were the handiwork of those with a criminal background, and that
Right.
usually comes as a cover for their other illegal activities,
Right.
drugs and prostitution. Something which you even mentioned in your book as well, that that does becomes a cover up for illegal activities, mainly because of some involvement in the by the politicians, as well as big money coming into such work. So I think in somewhere or other, perhaps you cannot exclude it from the so-called vices and illegal activities, but yes, gambling on its own definitely has it has gone mainstream, and I completely agree. So again, coming to your book, we see the characters. Some are, of course, the privileged ones, the politicians who are kind of untouched, because eventually we see the politician winning the elections as an independent candidate because he has his clout among among the people. Yet, no matter whether what is legal, what is illegal, how much we have progressed, there are still people who are vulnerable, and which are there in your novel as well. So I think it comes back to the point that no matter how things change, for some people, life, the society, it remains the same. There are some people who are always the underprivileged and all. What's your take on that?
So life is, a roll of dice. You take it, you basically deal with the cards you've been dealt, and then you try and make the best of it. I
Right.
think one of the biggest deals to us is the family that we are born in. We have no control
Yes.
over it, or the country that we are born in today.
True.
Depending on where you are born, which geography, and the family you are born, that has a very big impact on the life that you lead going forward. Those are the cards
True.
dealt to you, and then you you try and do the best of the situation that you find yourself in, because the opportunity sets that are available to you are very different depending on the geography and the family that you are born in.
Right.
If you're born in America, maybe the opportunities available to you are very different as compared to somebody who's born in Africa. We are
Right.
somewhere in the middle, being born in India. And then when are you born in India, let's go to the next level. You're born in a rich family, the subsets are very different. And this card is not decided by us. It's destiny, right? You're born in, and then you try and do the best of whatever you can based from that. So the starting point is very different for other different people, right?
No, that's true.
Generally, what I have found is, and what I've tried to portray in the novel is that the rich and powerful somehow are able to recover from
Yes.
any fall much faster as
Yes.
compared to someone who is not.
Not.
And
That's true.
this is based on real life experiences and what one has seen around us. Initially, there might be a lot of hue and cry, but eventually, if you find out after a few years, things are normal. They might not be out in the public domain. They will not be publicity seeking because people then go back to the event which happened. But otherwise, the life goes on for them.
True.
So that's the inspiration for the powerful characters in the novel. It's more realistic to that sense. I could have written that the downfall happened. It did happen, but most of the
Yeah.
times I've found that these people tend to bounce back very fast.
Yes.
If not from this party, they'll change party, go to the
The
other
same part.
party.
Yes.
Yes,
That's true.
so that is what happens. And all the parties, the fact that today, as a politician, you can change parties overnight shows that there is no real ideology behind any of these parties.
Yeah.
They accepting, so long as you are powerful and you can reach, you can win an election, all parties are welcoming you. They will give some spiel why they welcomed you into their uh, you know but the fact is that, so that just shows, so these people who are playing the edge of law, it's very easy to change parties and then take control and bounce back. And we've seen this happening many times in India. Why
Yes.
India? It happens abroad also. I mean, this is not something specific to India. So, so that's what has been portrayed in the book. To that extent, I think it's more realistic
True.
uh, than a typical one where I come back to something that in my novels you will find that the hero doesn't always win. you
Yes,
know, yes, there's a degree to which you will. I mean, it's probably neutral or positive, but it's not a clear victory, so to speak of. And part of the reason is that the nemesis are usually very strong
very strong.
characters in their own right. They have a great backstory, and I fight for the nemesis also because the stronger the nemesis, the better the story of the protagonist. Otherwise, the story of the protagonist will be flat. So that's what you find in the novel. Very realistic, the novel. Yes,
No,
and
no,
as I
that's
mentioned
that's true.
earlier, since the characters were driving the story, and I have not tried to intervene with that, some of
Right.
the things are not how I imagined they'll come out to be.
No, that's I think that's what the process of writing is about. This does show that you are having a natural flow of what you are writing, and I think that's a very important point of the hero and the nemesis. So what we and many people we of my age we realize we read in childhood अच्छाई पे बुराई की विजय, but that's not something which always happens in real life, and I think that's what your novel does portray very beautifully. So it's a very different topic, I would say, even your previous novel, The Last Street, because most of the novels or books on these topics are written by authors abroad. So everyone might have heard of Liar's Poker by Michael Lewis, but talking about what happens in the trading on the trading desk and all, I think you are one of those rare people in India who have written on this. So given that your topics are quite, you can say, not that mainstream, but you are bringing them into mainstream, first trading and then casinos. How difficult for you is to gather all that information and then put? How much time it typically takes you to gather the information, think of the plot, and then writing the book?
So there is a quote by Dan Brown which I heard when I was writing my first novel, when I began, the path of becoming a writer. And he said that write your first novel on a topic that you know nothing about. It will keep you excited
Right.
because you research and you will learn along the way. And that's why my first novel was on the art industry because I
Yes.
knew nothing about art when I wrote
Yes.
that novel. So I had to go and prima facie do a lot of research and then put it out. As far as Dalal Street is concerned, this novel came naturally to me because I used to be the CEO of a retail equity broking business in India. And this was a novel that I could have very easily written as the first novel. But I forced myself to write on a different topic.
Right. Understood.
So this was naturally. Again, the last street is based on a lot of real life interactions
Yes.
of relationship managers that I have seen up and close as part of my setup and other setups as well, wherein I was the client facing them. So at one end, I was the boss to whom they used to report, and on the other end, I was the client of those relationship managers who were serving me, basically. So it came as far as this one is concerned, the Goa Gambit. Uh, I think it was in 2016 that I met this gentleman from the village.
Okay.
2016, I don't remember the exact month. And I actually began writing this novel in 2019,
Okay.
3 years after that. And in that period, I visited casinos maybe 10 to 15 times, trying to gather the background, trying to create the environment of both Goa and the casino within Goa, and the different characters, and basically planning the story, so to speak of. The first word was put only in 2019,
Okay.
and I wrote this novel through COVID 2020 2021. At that point in time, I did not know whether this novel will see the light of the day because there was darkness all around us.
Yes.
And the last thing on your mind was whether this will get published or not. But I kept my head down and I kept writing. And very grateful to Niyogi Books, who then in 2023 is when we finally, uh, I presented this novel to them and they decided that they want to print it. And that's how the novel is in front of you today. And it took a I think a 1 year period for editing and
Yes.
things like that, and for the publishing
Right.
to happen. So that's where it is. So it was almost 2 years of research, two and a
Yeah.
half years of research on the casino industry, and that is the reason that the environment appears very real.
Yes.
The plot is well thought out, and even the characters are very deep. There are very nice backstories to all the characters, which help you to understand their motives of why they are doing what they are doing in the novel, which I think is very important. So it's well fleshed out characters, and they fall into place in that plot. But how the plot will evolve or how the characters will evolve was something that happened as we went along. It was
Right.
not fully thought out. That is my writing process. So I am
Right.
not one of those writers who has the beginning, middle, and end already planned out. I have a sense, but I don't concretize it at all, and I allow a lot of leeway to the characters to jump within that broad framework, and then the story comes out. So it's more natural, I think, that way.
Right. No, no, that's true. And as we said, your plots, your core ideas are, I would say, a little different from the mainstream. And so, did you face challenges while pushing this to publishers? Because I mean, this may appeal to, they may have this concern. This may appeal to limited number of people. For example, you're talking about specific industry. For example, the financial services. Did you come across any such concerns that it may not be a mass, not be a book which is mass read by masses and all? Any such concerns you faced while dealing with publishers for these novels?
So I think the concerns were more around the fact that the industry was going through a turmoil at that point in time, and
Mhm.
not specifically with the topic, the subject matter that I had discussed in the novel.
Right.
And it is true that nobody had written something like this before in India.
Yes.
It is quite unique in that sense, both the plot and also some of the characters. And but my publisher, when I showed it to Niyogi Books, they were very excited from the beginning, from the first read onwards. So I got a lot of support from them. Somewhere, I think some of the characters, there was the level of violence and sex both in the novel, I think, was toned down a little bit to make it
Okay.
more acceptable. Yes. Um, Somewhere when I was writing, also, I was also in my mind thinking about OTT platforms, which I think have taken real life drama to a very different level. It's on your face now. And
Yes.
so the novel, when I was writing, that was something which was in my mind. And that's probably the reason that s- sometimes you might find that, it's on your face, some of the characters and some of the scenes which have been portrayed in the novel, influenced by that. Yeah. So this novel is a little toned down version of the original manuscript that I had
Uh,
written. Yeah.
Wonderful. And I think it may be too early to ask, but what's on your menu next? Are we going to see another such thriller kind of stuff belonging to this industry? Will, or you have any different plot in mind?
So all the novels that I've written so far, they are dealing with greed and they are commercial thrillers. The
Yes.
downside is money. I think I raised the stakes a little bit higher in the Goa Gambit, as in some lives are also at stake as you go through it. I think in thriller, uh, I want to increase exponentially what's at stake going forward. I'm considering maybe moving on the crime side and probably writing a thriller where more lives are at stake.
Ah,
Uh, Something that I'm evaluating currently is the nuclear power plants in India, the nuclear
okay.
power plant industry. What if there was a terrorist strike on one, or what if somebody took over such a plant? Tarapur is our first nuclear power plant in India, and it's only
Yes.
100 kilometers from Mumbai. So if
Yeah.
somebody was to take over Tarapur, it can create a interesting environment dynamic to explore a thriller there, a crime-based
Right.
thriller. Because I have not written crime per se, but
Mhm.
this was my first time that I got a taste of it a little bit, even though this is a commercial thriller predominantly and not crime. So maybe I want to delve a little bit and write some crime now. I'm considering this as of now.
Wonderful. So I guess India may not get its own Michael Lewis anytime soon, but we are sure going to have a very interesting, thriller from your pen. I will definitely be looking forward to it. And Anurag, one to last question. So, any advice for aspiring writers?
Well, my advice is that you should write for passion, don't write for money. Uh, it's especially if you're writing fiction. I think the fiction market is not very well evolved in India, and given that fiction is basically predominantly a mode of entertainment, you are
Yes.
competing with OTT now, and you're competing
Yes.
with video games. I think the
Yep.
biggest fiction killer in the UK market is Candy Crush. Somebody told me, so it's interesting. So you have a few hours now every day, and in that time period, either you will read a novel which is fiction, or you'll watch some Netflix, or you'll play some game. So that way, the industry is very very competitive as compared to the old times when you did not have sources of entertainment available to you.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
when we used to travel, we used to carry a book with us to read. Now you watch Netflix on your phone. So that way the market is very limited. Non-fiction, the market is large in India. So you need to be very
Yes.
clear why you're getting into it. And yeah, to get published, it's still 2 or 3% people get published. So you have to be very sure if you're pursuing this as a writer, why you're doing it. It's not something which is financially very well paying. Let me put it like that. So you need to have a lot of passion behind it
That's
to
true.
yes. And we all see it's not that not all writers are successful. A lot of writers are successful. Some of them have done very well for themselves, but I also believe that the market has evolved significantly in the last 7 8 years. If those people were to come back again, maybe they will not get the same kind of response they got earlier, because this entire OTT world that has taken us over, this has happened in the last 7 8 years. So it's a
No,
difficult
no,
market.
that's very true. It reminds me of two very interesting quotes. One was, I don't know who said it, but he said it that अगर आपकी बुक रेलवे स्टेशन के प्लेटफॉर्म पर भी मिल रही है तो you have arrived as a writer.
Yes.
And to this, another friend of mine replied in one of the forums, which we have a kind of WhatsApp group for, readers and all. And he said that he talked in the context of railway station. If we go across railway station, there are less bookstores and more food stalls. So instead of people reading, they are carrying a packet of chips, and for entertainment, they have this mobile on which they are watching, some OTT series. So I'm in complete agreement with you. Yes, the market is tough because there are less readers, unfortunately. But let's hope for someone like me who is always on the lookout for a new interesting book that this market evolves further and we get more readers and then definitely more authors, people like you who are ready to take that risk and write on something which may not be in the mainstream, but they have the courage to write and bring those things into the mainstream. So, Anurag, it was a pleasure talking to you, and I have to admit, I have had many interviews, but very rarely do I come across authors with such clarity with which you spoke today, whether it's your own book or whether it's about, writing as a career. So, definitely, it was wonderful talking to you, and all those who are watching this. Again, this is a book I strongly recommend. This is an area which many people may not be aware about, but I think if you're looking for a good novel, a good fiction, this is a book you should be reading. For I can see definitely see not only in Rag research, but a lot of passion which this book is written. So this is one book you will definitely, I would say I recommend this book.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you.
Thanks, Anurag. It was a
And
pleasure talking to you, and all the best for your future books.
thank you. Thank you. You play an important role in, ensuring that we get discovered. So you're part of the machinery. And yeah, we all fiction writers need this.
Absolutely. Just as you said, it's about passion, which is
Thank you.
most important. Same is the case with me.
Right.
Thanks, Anurag.